Hi, and welcome once again to Off the Cuffs. I'm Bobby Kimbrough, and today I'm very fortunate to have with me retired Major Garland Wallace. I'm excited about that because when you think about an agency, you think about how did you get here. You think about what made this agency the agency that it is. And I'll tell anyone that whether it's a law enforcement agency, whether it's a business, whether it's a school, whether it's a church, the religion, what matters is how did you get there, the backs of the people that came before you that caused the agency to be as successful as it is. And with that said, I'm grateful to have one of the pioneers, one of the men who made way for me to be sitting here, Mr. Garland Wallace, who retired as a major. Major Wallace, I want to welcome you back to the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. I'm grateful to have you, and welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff Kimbrough. It's my pleasure to be with you today, and I've been thinking about this ever since I was contacted a couple of weeks ago to come down. I didn't know what to look for, but I said, whatever it is, I'll be ready.
I appreciate that. So I wanted you to come down because, as I was sharing with you earlier, when we started this podcast, we talked about putting information out into the community, changing the atmosphere of the community. And I think that in order to change something, people must understand where they were, where they're going, and how we're going to get there. And so I wanted you to come and share your career. So a couple of questions I have about your career that I'm going to ask you later on. But just tell me, when did you start with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office?
I began with the Sheriff's Department January 1971.
Wow. 1971.
Yeah.
When did you retire?
I retired January 1997.
Wow, 71 to 91. Wow. So 30 years? 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So tell me, what was it like in 1971 working for the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office? Did you come here out of school? What were you doing before you got here?
I worked in one of the local factories here.
Okay.
I was attending Winston-Salem State at the time, and after I left the factory, I sold insurance.
Okay.
And I was at that time I had been in the Navy Reserve. I was in the Navy for 4 years,
mm-hmm.
and after I got out, and about 10 years later, I joined the reserves. And one of my friends that was in the reserves with me was a deputy sheriff at the time, and we talked quite a bit. And one day I saw him at Northside Shopping Center, and this was about a couple of years later.
Wow.
He asked me, was I still interested? I said yes. So he told me to come down and fill out the application, and so talk to the sheriff, and I did. And
who was the sheriff when you got hired?
Sheriff Lancaster.
Lancaster, okay. That's all right.
He hired me, and he was one of the pioneers at that time, and he talked with me briefly. Well, he talked to me for a long while about coming in and what I thought about coming in, and I told him, I didn't know anything about law enforcement, although I did stand shore patrol while I was in the Navy several times. But other than that, I think I would make a good officer for him. And he accepted me, and I went from there.
Well, a couple questions. Before I go any further, I want to thank you for your services in the armed service, and thank you for your service with the Sheriff's Office. But when you came here, what was your duty? Where did they have you working at?
I started out at the site, we called it the jail.
Jail.
I like detention.
Okay.
I like the word detention. That's where I started out, at the jail, as just a slick sleeve, and I'll never forget, I started on a Saturday, and the fellow that was training me at that time, we'd walk around, and he didn't say anything much to me, and I just told him that I was going to be like his coat. I'm going to be right on your back, and I'd like for you to tell me everything I need to know. And I say I'm very inquisitive, and I think I was over inquisitive to him, but that was what I want to know. I want to know everything about what was going on.
Wow. So prior to you getting here, I was talking with some of the older guys that have been here for a while, even though I've known you as a young boy, I remember seeing you in the courthouse. I've known of you way before now, and I just was always impressed with how you carried yourself, how squared away you were. But I was asking the guys, I said, tell me some of the things about Major Wallace that I don't know. Tell me some things that I don't know about him. And so they were saying that, there was a time, there was an article in the paper about a hostage situation at the jail. Said, so make sure you ask him about that when you talk with him, because I don't remember the story, and he probably does. I say, you know what? I'm going to ask him that, because we call it off the cuffs, and sometimes we ask questions that you probably was not expected. So I'm going to ask you that question. Tell me about that situation. Tell me what was going on at that time in our country.
I had been working about 3 weeks,
Wow,
or less, and
still 1971.
1971.
Wow.
And this particular night, we were working midnight shift. And if I'm not mistaken, there were no more than 4 of us on the shift at that time. And, of course, we had our office, we make our rounds. And this particular morning, I made a round. And I was on the 3rd floor. And as I rounded the 3rd floor on the right-hand side of the cell block, on that floor, I turned. There was no one in the cell block at all.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was empty. No one that was assigned to that at that time. But as I turned, I ran into 2 inmates that weren't supposed to be there. And I turned back. There were 2 more that weren't supposed to be there. Well, I hadn't been to my training yet. But using common sense, I just didn't try to do anything because I was outnumbered. Was
Right.
the first thing. I was outnumbered. And at that time, you don't carry weapons up in the area
Right.
of the detention center. So they tied me up. I got tied up. And I got put in that empty cell myself.
Wow.
And I just tried to use common sense at that time. They took my keys, my large keys that I had. They took those, and they left. Well, I didn't try to get loose at that time because I didn't want to be a dead hero,
Right.
per se. So I waited, and I heard the elevator. You could hear the elevator all over it. So after I heard the elevator, I said, well, evidently they've gone down. So there were back steps. The small keys I had in my pocket. I took my small keys out, and I ran all the way down the back steps into the area where the trustees were. And I told the trustees, I said, we've had an escape. If anybody want to help, come on and help us. And a couple of them got up and we went out around. And when I went around, I heard my buddy in the office. I heard him yell. Well, at that time, the door was open at the office area.
Right.
And they had gone in, and I thought at that time they had probably got the guns because our weapons were in there.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't. They just opened the door, and they went out, and all 4 of them got away.
Wow. Wow.
That was a miserable time.
That was 1971.
1971, January 1971.
So that one must have been when the old detention center, or as you say, the old jail,
yes,
was right there. I guess that
115 North Church Street.
Church Street, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
We've come a long way since then.
A long way.
And you left there. You made your way from, as you say, a slick sleeve to a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, a major. You
Yes.
retired as a major.
Yes.
That's an amazing career.
It is.
So when I look back and I look at the men and women that came before me, I look at the time, the era, and what was going on in our country. I mean, you came through in a not so kind generation, or not so kind of times that we were living in. And to have endured that, to have ascended to the rank of a major, how and what was the mindset? I'm always curious to know the mindset of people when they go through difficult times. I'm always curious to know what's the mindset that made you come back to work again after being held hostage. What's the mindset that made you say after 3 weeks, 4 weeks on the job, I'm quitting. I'm going back to selling insurance or going back to working for that company that you came from?
It's amazing that you asked that question. This was on a Saturday. I went home that morning, and in fact, I stopped by the barbershop. And when I got home, my wife asked me where had I been, because everybody had been called in my house that they had an escape at the detention center that night and morning. And she said, "What happened to you?" I said, "Well, I'm here." So we talked about it, and all during that day, I tried to sleep, I couldn't, and I thought about it. I said, I shouldn't go back. And I thought, yes, I said, I'm going back, and I'm going back tonight.
Perseverance.
Yes. I went back the same night. I went to the same floor to make one of my rounds, and I got to the gate to open it, and I just took me a deep breath, and I made my round. I couldn't quit. I look back at my life, and I look back at my career. God put me there for a reason, and that's why I couldn't leave. I enjoyed it. I never worked patrol. I worked the courtroom and detention, and I enjoyed every moment. Coming up through the ranks and things, I told my captain, which was Captain Harvey Wood at the time, that I would like to go to any school, whether it's 1 day, 1 hour, whatever. I would like to go to any school pertaining to my job. I said, I want to learn all about it. And I can remember one day that he called me in, and I was a sergeant, and he asked me what was my long-range goal.
Wow.
And I just told him that I want to be in that chair one day. And he smiled, but when I told my colleagues about it, they say, "You told him that?" I said, "Yes, I did." I said, and I meant it, because that's what I want. That's where I want to be one day. And ultimately, I was.
When I was listening to you, so many things ran through my mind. I guess when you said your wife was wondering where you're at, and in my mind I was saying, why didn't he call her? Then I kept saying to myself, that was 71. Wasn't no cell phones, right? That was before cell phones.
That's true.
And then I was sitting here saying to myself, but the tenacity of a man that had been held hostage, tied up, to show back up that night, that's perseverance. For a man to, as you said, the things and the hardships of that time, to tell a man that I want to be sitting in that chair, that's powerful. Because when we talk about things like that, you have to speak them, you have to walk it, you have to own it. And that is why I am so excited about talking with men and women that came before me, men and women that made it possible for me to be sitting here, because you have no idea the people that you have shaped. You have no idea the community that you have affected as a whole. And I say that because so many people don't realize the effect that we have on one another, regardless of where you may be at, regardless of where you may be, your position, your station, your place in life is there for a reason.
That's true. And
you said that God placed you there for a reason.
Yes.
Whether it was the mentor to the men and women that were incarcerated, whether it was to be a beacon of hope and light for the men and women who came behind you that said, hey, if he can be a sergeant, I can be one. Yeah. I can too. If he can be a lieutenant, I can too. If he can be a captain, I can too. And the fact of the matter, he can be a major, I can too.
That's true.
And the fact of the matter that you mentored to them, you shaped them, you gave them hope. And when people looked at this agency in 1971, in 1979, in 1980, when they saw a person that was not traditionally rising through the ranks, that spoke volume. When people would walk into the courtroom and see you in there, that said a lot. And the thing that I remember about you as a young man, in 1984, I was working with the police department. And when I came over to the courtroom, and I was always impressed at how tight you were, the creases in your pants, how sharp your shoes were. I mean, you were you were the picture perfect of a officer, and not knowing that you had been in the military until just now. And so I could kind of see how you got that background from that gave you that presence, that gave you that tenacity that you had.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful for you, because when I walk through the hallways and I look at the pictures on the wall and I see the men and women that have come through here, that have gone on home, and I welcome them back. A few more things that I've got to share, because what I have learned is that when we sitting at this table to me has a mystical power about it, because it takes me places sometimes that I don't want to go. It makes me ask questions, because I feel that information transforms people. And you and I have had some similar experiences in life, and I've always, whether you know this or not, when you and I started going to the same barbershop on 311, I was always, every time I saw you, I was always impressed with the composure, the power, the love, and everything that exudes off of you. I thought about how you lost your wife, I lost mine, when you lost your son, and still, you still that man that walks upright, stands upright. I remember going to your church and speaking at your church that your son started, he and his wife, and I'm just amazed at how your walk has been, and what that leads me to believe that something has ordered your footsteps greater than man.
Yes, it has.
Because for you to still be standing, for you to still have endured all that you have endured, is impressive. And not only is it impressive, it's a true testament of what faith and what God can do in a man's life. And I'm grateful for you taking time out to come and be a part of this, because this sheriff's office has so much rich history that is untold, that needs to be told.
Yes.
I never knew the story of you being held hostage at the jail. I doubt very few people even remember that, or even remember reading it in the paper. I doubt very few people know that you were a major when you left here.
Yes.
I mean, they have no idea of the wealth of information and what you oversaw, the number of people that you supervised, the number of people that you gave leadership to. I was talking to Captain Gray and talking to Settlers, and all of them were so impressed. They were telling me about when they came, you were a sergeant. One said you were a lieutenant when they came, what you showed them, what you taught them, what you told them, the do's and the don'ts of the job, how to basically keep your nose clean, how to walk a certain way, how to talk a certain way, how to do exactly what you said, make yourself better, increase the possibilities in your life, request to go to all the trainings that you want to go to.
Yeah.
And to me, that speaks volume.
Yeah.
So how, or what would you credit the difficult times in your life in law enforcement? Because we all know that this profession of law enforcement has a way of taking its toll on you. And then life itself has a way of taking its toll. So how did you balance the two before I close up? How did you balance the two of working, a family, and all the things that you've had to balance?
Yeah. You know, it goes back to home training.
Yeah.
You're bringing up you're being taught how to treat people regardless of their race, creed, or color. It's a thing where you know that everybody's a human being, regardless. Get acquainted with the people you are with. Share things that you know with the people that you are with. Be friends with the people that you work with. I remember I had, even when I worked in the courtroom, and I never brought this up before, but I'm going to bring it now.
Sure.
When I went back to the courtroom in 1992, I believe, or 1994, at that time, I was the first black that was in charge of courtroom division.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't a big thing, but it was a big thing.
Exactly.
It was never brought out, but it's all right. You know, wherever I was put, I try to do my best. And I tell the people that come behind me, do your best. Ask questions. Let it be known that I want to go to schools. I ended up going to school in Boulder, Colorado, University of Georgia. Went down to Salemburg about 8 times, I guess it was. You know, things of that sort. You have to make it known to people that this is what you want to do. You're looked up. When you go in as a person, as a black man, to be honest with you, you got to look better. I've got to be shine. My shoes got to be shined better than his, or better than the other guys. I try to lead by example.
You've done that.
I not only for the job, but for even for life skills. When I was the administrator at the jail, every time a new person would get hired, I would call them into my office personally and talk with them about life. You know, the first thing I asked them, I said, all right, you got a good job. You got a good paying job. You got good benefits. What are you going to do? First thing most of them would say, you get a new car. I said, no. Have you got a car now? Yes. I said, don't get a new car. You know, and those kind of things that they hadn't thought about, that I had experienced. So I shared with them that, look, your car's running, get your, just stay with it and keep it until you can afford to get what you want. Then they'll say, I will get me an apartment. I said, that's fine, but that's your apartment. You don't have to put all this furniture in there at one time until you can afford it. Because if you get all this stuff, a new car, new house, and put all this stuff in it, and 6 months from now, you're going to say, oh, how am I going to pay for it? Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things that I would pass on to the young officers.
That's valuable information because so many times in life, we make mistakes because we don't know better, so we can't do better.
Exactly.
But when we have mentors like yourself that say, hey, here's how you should do this, here's how you should do that, it makes a difference. I'll share, since we're being candid and, is always transparent. I remember when I began this run or this race, and I was talking with you, and you gave me some good advice. And so I appreciate that because you've been where I was trying to go. You have reached, a place in life to where you have valuable information. You have information that can make a difference. You have history here. You have history as a man living. You have life experiences. You have exposure that shapes and changes life. And so I want you to know, on behalf of all 600 plus men and women that currently work here now, because of you, we are better. Because of you, we're greater. And because of you, this agency is thriving. Because of men and women like you. I want you to know that this house is your house, will always be your house. I welcome you to this house. I really enjoy these conversations. I enjoy these conversations more than I do drinking my favorite soda, because it inspires me. Just like the caffeine in this soda inspires me in a different kind of way. These conversations, they inspire me because it inspires me to the point to where I've got to toe the line because of you. I've got to be better because of you. I'm here because I arrived on the backs of men and women that came way before me. And so I thank you for being here today. Like I said, you're welcome back. I just admire you being a stakeholder in this community, a leader in this community, in the county of Forsyth, in the state of North Carolina. Keep doing what you're doing because it's men like you that are changing this community beyond law enforcement. You're changing it from a social standpoint.
You don't know how much I appreciate you inviting me to do this because there is a story to tell.
Oh, it's got to be told.
And it has to be told. Has to be. And anytime that I can be of any advice for you or anything that you need to, any questions you may need asked, I'm an old fella.
I consider you as one of my mentors.
I try to still carry myself in the way that I'm looked up to.
I appreciate you. Well, anything you want to say, because I want you to have the last word.
I would. That I was put on this job for a reason, to do things that God had given me the wisdom to do. And I'll say this much: Forsyth County was very good to me, to be an employee. I enjoyed my job. I can't remember a time that I didn't want to come to work. I just can't remember a time.
Wow.
I treated people like I wanted to be treated. It didn't matter who you are. That was just me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank God for that I didn't divide. I just talked to people like I want to be talked to. I don't care who you are, where you come from, what color you are. Doesn't matter to me. And
Wow.
I thank God for that, because there is a way, and the way is the right way.
That is so true. One of the things that we say before I leave us is that, we talk about many times is that it's not black or white, it's not partisan, it's what's right, it's what's legal,
Exactly.
and what's moral.
Exactly.
And that's currently how we move here. We'll continue to move here. As always, we welcome anyone to the table of Off the Cuffs where you can be heard. We welcome your opinion, or whether you agree or disagree with what we're doing, we welcome you to Off the Cuffs. And as always, we look forward to seeing you at the table. Once again, Major Garland Wallace, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Sheriff Kimbrough.
Yes, sir.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very
you.
much.